Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 361 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Monday, September 16th, 2024, where it's about to get nasty out here. I don't know about where you are, but where I am, it's about to get really ugly. Can't get any uglier than what it was for the Dolphins on Thursday night, but we have turned the page. It's a new week, it's a new day. How's that song go? Anyway, there's a song by Michael Bublé, I think it is. Uh, Bad reference. I apologize. Anyway, as we get the show off to a rousing start, let me start by welcoming my co-host for today, Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. How are you, Perk?
I'm good, man. I'm ready to talk some football.
You not ready to talk some Michael Bublé?
I'm versatile now. I got that in my game.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I don't. Let me stop lying. I don't.
Okay. I have no idea where I went on the tangent. So let's talk about some other stuff. Let's talk about Tua, Tehran, Skylar, Tyler. How about that?
Yep.
So the Dolphins were back at the Baptist Health Training Complex on Monday. They did not practice, which is normal. They play Sunday. This was like a day back after the Thursday night game. They'll be off Tuesday, and they'll begin their normal preparations for the game Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, the big news on Monday was the update regarding Tua Tagovailoa. And as far as updates go, wasn't necessarily voluminous, but whatever there was of it was good, from Mike McDaniel saying that Tua seems to be doing well, and all his teammates were happy to see him.
Yeah, and you know what? It's good that we're kind of at a stable place in this deal where Tua has seemingly got his health for now, not his football playing health, but he's lucid, he's in good spirits according to reports. So he's not foggy, he's not in the hospital, nothing like that. So at least from that standpoint, we can kind of take a deep breath and gather ourselves in this situation.
No, correct. And again, it wasn't like a major update in terms of a lot of new developments, but whatever developments there were, they're all positive. Mike McDaniel, again, and I give him props for this, refuses to speculate, talk timetables, even refused to acknowledge the report from Ian Rappaport from Sunday morning that Tua has no plans to retire, basically because he has said, when it comes to Tua's career, I'm going to let Tua talk about his career. And, props to him for that. One question that he would be in control of being able to answer is whether to put Tua on IR. He said more information needs to be gathered to make that determination. And this is where I remind everybody, Tua, when he suffered what was a really scarier and uglier looking concussion in 2022, did not go on IR. In fact, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the only time he's gone on IR is because of the ribs in 2021. So I have that right?
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right, because he didn't in 2022 at all.
And last year he played every single game. So, again, I think everybody has assumed, because of what we saw and because it's concussion number 3 officially diagnosed, that he's going to go on IR. And I'm not even sure, while it's not going on a limb, I don't even know that we can make that assumption.
No, you can't. From a football standpoint, it would seem the wise thing to do, because if he's not going to play before the bye, you're losing out on a roster spot that could be needed. So from that standpoint, you would think, and the way that public sentiment is going, you would think the Dolphins would be sensitive to that. With Tua's injury history, you would think the Dolphins would be sensitive to that and put him on IR, saying, hey, it doesn't mean he's missing the rest of the season. It just means he's taking at least a 4-week breather, and so are we. I'm a little bit surprised that they have not done that. I understand being sensitive to Tua, but the bigger picture is you've got to serve your football team. And I'm not being insensitive to Tua or his family or his health at all. It's just this thing is bigger than Tua, not from the Tua life standpoint, but from the Tua as an individual football standpoint, individual football player standpoint, that this is about your roster not about a single player. That from that standpoint, that's why I'm surprised that he hasn't been put on IR yet.
Except, again, to me, because concussions are so finicky and quirky in terms of how each of them goes, because not all concussions are the same.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I don't know that the Dolphins need to be in a rush to put him on IR if the possibility exists, and maybe this is a 2-week deal. We just don't know. And I understand, I understand the optics of him coming back pretty early from this concussion, considering it's number 3. But if all doctors agree that he's completely cleared of this one, he's had the talks where everybody needs to have a talk to, and he's like, I'm going straight ahead. I'm continuing to play. Then do you have to put him on IR just for optics sake? That's
no. Not necessarily for the optics, for the roster spot. If he's not going to play for, if you say the next 3 games, why not just make it 4 and get the roster spot? That's kind of what I'm saying. I'm saying with the way that the NFL works, because again, this is kind of, from a football standpoint, this is bigger than one player. Not from the Tua health life standpoint, but just doing the mathematics and the housekeeping with football, this is bigger than one player. And we'll see what happens with Raheem and Jeff Wilson and Teron Armstead, but it might turn out that you need every roster spot that you can make available at your disposal.
Okay, it could be. That's fair. But I'm going to fall back on my old point that when you're talking about one roster spot, you're talking about a 53rd player on the roster.
Right.
And very, very interestingly, the guys who have found themselves on the inactive list the first 2 games include a couple of the recent draft picks. It's Channing Tindall. It's Mohamed Kamara. It's been Malik Washington because he's been hurt. And then it's also been, not that he's a draft pick, but young player Ethan Bonner. And then Andrew Meyer, who made the team as a rookie free agent, who the Dolphins clearly like. So, but I see the point. And again, there's maybe something gets done, who knows, tomorrow. Dolphins have to create a roster spot after they sign their new quarterback, which is the next topic of conversation. The Dolphins signing off the Baltimore Ravens practice squad, Tyler Huntley. And this is where I'm gonna throw out, and I hope nobody hates me for this, former Pro Bowl quarterback. And I say this because it was the Pro Bowl quarterback, or a Pro Bowl quarterback, in the 2022 season when he started, get this, 4 games.
4 or 5. Yeah, 4 or 5.
It was 4 games. I looked it up. It was 4 games, and it was because Patrick Mahomes was in the Super Bowl. Josh Allen was dealing with an injury bot out. Joe Burrow got an excused absence, so it wound up being 3 replacements. Howie still made it as the 3rd replacement, considering he started, again, 4 games. Anyway. So
and Tua was out with the concussion also, because he got that concussed against Green Bay.
So he was bypassed as an alternate. There wasn't even
right.
He wasn't named, but he would. I think he may have been the first alternate, actually.
Yeah.
But there were others as well, because no offense, but at that point it was like, oh boy, okay. So this is a guy with, I want to say, 9 career starts, 3-6 record as a starter. And if you read social media, all of a sudden the Dolphins signed Tom Brady in his prime. I mean, it's like, I get it. In terms of what they could get out there as far as veterans are concerned, love it. Because he's better than a lot of the options among those who were not on an active roster. But can we please simmer down a little bit with the hyperbole as far as what the Dolphins got here? No,
I agree.
Okay,
I agree. And look, Poop, there's 2 standpoints here. There's the Dolphins standpoint from, are you planning? Don't you trust Skylar Thompson? And then there's the Dolphins standpoint from, now Snoop is Tyler Huntley. They call him Snoop.
Sorry, Snoop. Yeah.
He's not the same quarterback as Tua and Skylar. He's got more versatility and athleticism to his game. Are the Dolphins opening up the playbook? I'll take the don't they trust Skylar Thompson aspect first. I'm choosing to trust Skylar Thompson, Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, and the Dolphins administration because, Poop, I fail to believe that you could come out of an entire offseason and a training camp where you have this big quarterback competition. We're putting them in difficult situations. And the first time there's a difficult situation, you don't trust the guy. I trust that they trust Skylar, and I trust what I saw during training camp, and that's that Skylar was better than Mike White. Skylar deserves to be the backup. I think they should have also kept Mike White, but that's a separate discussion. So I'm going to choose to trust that Skylar Thompson is ready and capable, and that Mike McDaniel has prepared a package because let's face it, what Skylar has to do primarily is get the ball to Tyreek and get the ball to Jalen Waddle, right? That's how the Dolphins that's what Tua did. That's what Mike McDaniel draws this offense up to do. That's no disrespect to Tua, but that's what he did. That's how this offense thrives and succeeds. So you've got to draw up a package for Skylar. How does he deliver the ball to Tyreek and to Jalen Waddle quickly and efficiently? That's number one. Then from the other standpoint of, are the Dolphins ready to kind of diversify? I believe that Marcel Louis-Jacques from ESPN asked Mike McDaniel about the difference in style, and McDaniel seemed to say, yes, it is a different style, but we're kind of open to that this offense from Shanahan didn't start here with me. It existed before me, meaning there are other elements. And, we could go into the Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, but quarterback athleticism and agility could be part of this offense. And so I think that McDaniel is acknowledging that perhaps I could add that to this offense. That's the two standpoints that I take the Tyler Huntley acquisition from.
Okay. And this is where also that Mike McDaniel referenced a different style in San Francisco when Trey Lance was running the offense. And I'm not sure I'd want to go there necessarily. No. Because newsflash, that didn't work out well. Right. And in fact, it worked out so poorly that the 49ers wound up getting rid of Trey Lance. And here's the thing with Skylar, and I wrote about this on Miami Dolphins on SI, and everybody goes back to 2022. Oh my God, the Dolphins were horrible. They couldn't win without Tua. Except, I'm going to point it out again because I always do, and I'm going to point out again, yes, help your quarterback. Number one, do you know how many takeaways the Dolphins had in their 4 games in the regular season that they started without Tua? That would be correct. In 4 games, 0 takeaways from the defense. That was the game against the Jets, Minnesota, New England, and then the Jets against the season. 1 takeaway. Do you know how many snaps Teron Armstead played at left tackle in those 4 games? He played 8. Yeah. He played the first 8 snaps in the Jets game, and then he got hurt, and then he missed the other 3 games. And then, as in now, the offensive line without Teron Armstead is not the same. Mm-hmm. So again, when we talk about the Dolphins having gone 1-3 without Tua, well, it's not as simple as Tua not there, Dolphins lose. Right. Okay, and I've always taken great exception to that, and I've thrown Teddy Bridgewater in the equation, much to the chagrin of a lot of Dolphin fans. But guess what? That's the facts I'm saying are just facts. Mm-hmm. So, and Mike McDaniel is very confident in Skylar. He spoke about why he thinks he's going to do it. Basically, his argument is because Skylar's been through some experiences before. I don't know if that's necessarily horribly convincing, but again, to me, it's more like, obviously we trust him. Otherwise, why would we've kept him? As far as Tyler Huntley, he goes in the game. It's a different, because what he does best is run around. Mm-hmm. And because as a passer, with all due respect, I mean, although his passer rating is better than Skylar Thompson, but as I recall from watching him, it's a lot of very short passing, which could be fine. And now the question is, you bring in somebody like Tyler Huntley, does that mean Skylar has a short leash?
I can't believe that he would initially, because I don't know what Tyler Huntley can do in this offense. This is his first exposure to it. So I would think, let's just say for Seattle, for the next 2 games, I don't even know who's after Seattle. I would think that Skylar. Okay, I would think that Skylar is your quarterback almost no matter what, realistically. I did think it was interesting that I asked Mike McDaniel to drill down on why Tyler Huntley was brought in. Is he going to be Skyler's backup and ahead of Tim Boyle? Is he going to compete with Tim Boyle for number 3? Is he going to compete with Skyler to be the temporary starter? And McDaniel basically said that Huntley is being brought in to back up Skyler, and after that, we'll see how it goes on the field. You let competition play itself out. Right. Which I thought was interesting. So it's good. Nothing is promised to Skyler. You've got to earn it. You've got to prove that you deserve it, which I think is good. But I think I just thought it was an interesting comment to add, considering you haven't even seen Tyler Huntley yet. But I do like the, nothing is given to you here. You've got to earn it attitude. Although that's not the attitude with every player on the roster.
Correct. Correct. But no, Huntley was signed. The move's not official, by the way, yet, and the transactions have already been processed for Monday, so it's going to be probably a Tuesday morning thing. That's going to happen. But he's signed to the 50. He's going to sign to the 53 because there's no way he's leaving the Baltimore practice squad to join the Dolphins practice squad. Right. And it's, as a third quarterback, it's a much better option, with all due respect, than signing Tim Boyle off the Dolphins on practice squad. And again, the offense is not going to look the same without Tua, because Tua is a better quarterback than Skylar Thompson. Yep. But the notion that the offense completely falls apart and can't do anything right if Tua is not a quarterback, I'm sorry, I completely reject and refuse that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is where, and they're not playing juggernauts in the next 4 games. It's, even though Seattle's 2-0, but they won against Denver at home. Denver's not very good. They won at New England in overtime, and New England, while plucky and much better than anybody thought they were going to be, still not a horribly talented team. Then you got Tennessee at home, which is a mess. Then you're at New England, and then you got at Indianapolis, and the Colts are off to a rough start. So this is probably, in fact, the soft part of their schedule. So the timing, if there's such a thing, is actually good. So this notion the Dolphins are going to go 1-4, Tua misses 4 games, to me is absurd. And if that's a fact, then if that winds up happening, it says, Will Robinson, danger, crisis. That would be bad beyond belief.
I agree. That look, Dolphins fans, you've got to understand that this team has to find other ways to win. But look, as I said on social media, the path to the playoffs remains the same. You're trudging over non-playoff teams. Again, last year, 10-1 against non-playoff teams, 1-6 against playoff teams. The path remains the same. Now, granted, you've got to find a different way to beat those non-playoff teams, but that's why you have an entire team, right? That, look, you're not depending on Skylar Thompson to do the same things that Tua did at the same level. He's a backup. He's a backup for a reason. Mm-hmm. So that means Tyreek, you've got to do a little bit more. Jalen Waddle, you've got to do a little bit more. Achane, Teron Armstead, Durham Smythe, Frank Smith, Anthony Weaver, Calais Campbell, Jalen Ramsey, like the people who got the raises, the people who are in the big money positions, the high profile positions, you've got to do more. You don't ask Skylar Thompson to do more and to be Tua. You look at yourself and you say, Skylar's not as good as Tua. I've got to do a little bit more. But I know teams always preach against don't do more than your 1/11th because you're going to do too much. You're going to get out of the system and it all breaks down. You've got to figure out a way to make life easier on Skylar. Skylar's not going to make your life easier. You've got to make his life easier.
Fair enough. Why is it 1/11th and what you're 9%? I don't know. We just thought about that. Why is it you don't do your 1/11 do your 9%? I prefer that. Speaking of Tyreek and Waddle, our good friend Adam Beasley asked a very interesting question. In looking back at the film, Mike McDaniel, why was it that Tyreek and Jalen were able to be kind of taken out of the game? And he basically said that the Bills were not going to let Tyreek and Jalen Waddle beat them, and they were basically disregarding anything else the Dolphins were doing to focus on those two guys. Well, if that's the case, copycat league, other defenses are going to do the same. Well, and if that's the case, then maybe the Dolphins at some point are going to have to create some ways of getting them the ball. And I said that on the podcast, I think maybe yesterday or the day before, both days actually. Okay, more wide receiver screens, more bubble screens, more jet sweeps, more end arounds. You got to get the ball in those guys' hands. It can't be Devon Achane with 29 carries. And I mean, hats off to him. Actually, hats off literally to him for what he did. He's not built to have 29 carries touches per game.
Nope, he's not. And yeah, Poop, and this gets into having that number 3 on offense. And I was a big Dalvin Cook guy. Good thing they didn't follow my advice and get Dalvin Cook, because that would have been disastrous. But the bigger point and the bigger picture is you need a number 3, whether it's a tight end, whether it's a slot receiver, whether it's a running back to carry it 20 times a game, or a running back who can get 10 carries and 8 receptions, whatever. You need that number 3. And this highlights that teams know if we focus on Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, the Dolphins are going to struggle to score. That's what happened last year. In those games where they were 1-6 against the playoff teams, Tyreek did not have 100 yards. I mean, he got 99 against Dallas, but everybody and look, here's the other part of that, Poop. In those 7 games where they went 1-6, the Dolphins rushed for over 100 yards 4 times. Because teams are like, we're playing our 2 deep safeties. You'll run against a 7-man box. Get all the yards you want. You're not going to beat us like that. You might score 2 or 3 touchdowns, but you're not going to win the game with that run game. And so the Dolphins need to take the next step with this offense. It's not only how do we survive without Tyreek and Jalen, how do we win? How do we win? Like, what do we get the ball to the tight end? Do we run more between the tackles? Like, you got to figure out something else, because all you had was that fastball, and teams have timed that now. So you got to have an off-speed pitch, a curve, a slider, something.
Yeah, and the disturbing part, and of course it equates, well, for the most part, it equates for playing good teams. But if you look at the Dolphins' last several games, I think starting with Dallas, it's 22 points, 19, 14, 7, 20, and then 10.
Yep.
I mean, where's the explosive offense that we all knew and loved? I mean, is it because these were other in Jacksonville, these were all really good teams? Or is it the Dolphins have been figured out? And if it's B, that's a little concerning.
Yeah, it's very concerning. And again, the Dallas game, you're at home. You won that game. Congratulations. But 1 touchdown and 5 field goals. And 2 of the field goals are over 50 yards. So you weren't even in the red zone. Your offense wasn't even in the red zone. 3 of them. Yeah. Okay. 3 of them. So your offense has got to do better. And look, let's flip that also, that you've just got to find ways to win. You've got to be resourceful. Your defense last year, didn't they had 3 straight games where they scored a touchdown. You did have the Jason Sanders game where you had the 5 field goals. You've got to play complementary football. You've got to be resourceful. It's not going to be as aesthetically beautiful as Tua to Tyreek and Tua to Jalen Waddle. It's just not. You've got to kind of probably be a scrappy team, a resourceful team, a team that just figures out ways to win week to week. I'm not sure there's going to be an overarching theme of, well, the pass rush won them the game for this 6-week stretch, or the run game kept them afloat for this 8-week stretch. It's probably going to be patchwork based specifically on the opponent. Like, what can you do to this specific opponent with your personnel? But whatever, Poop, they've just got to find a way to win. And look, I really do think that this team can stay afloat. What does that mean? Staying afloat, I think they can stay around the 500 mark. I don't, without Tua out there, you're not going to reel off 8 straight victories. Let's be honest. But with the talent on this team, Poop, and the coaching, like you've got an innovative head coach. You've got 2 coordinators who have had head coaching jobs, right? You've got Jalen Ramsey, you've got Tyreek, you've got Waddle.
When was head coach?
What's that?
When was Anthony Weaver head coach?
I mean, who have interviewed? That's what who have interviewed. I think that's what I meant to say. Your coordinators have both interviewed for head coaching jobs. So they're hot prospects, or were recently in the last couple of years, right? You've got Jalen Ramsey, you've got Tyreek, you've got Tua, you've got Jordan Poyer, Javon Holland, Jonnu Smith, Raheem Mostert, Teron Armstead. We'll see, but you got talent. Be resourceful. Like, figure out a way to stay afloat.
Here's the thing, though. They do have some big name players, but the problem is they're not particularly good or overly talented in key spots, i.e. the offensive line and the defensive line. Because Zach Sealer's a tremendous player. Calais Campbell very well might wind up in the Hall of Fame, but he's 38 years old, and there's only so much you can ask of a 38-year-old. And on the offensive line, I don't even need to say it. So this is where, again, I've said this from the beginning of the podcast, the Dolphins have a smaller margin for error than a team that can overpower you. When the finesse requires more timing, cohesion, everything working, as opposed to just straight ahead physical ball, Speaking of hold that thought for a second. I just want to mention that, speaking of the offensive line, Mike McDaniel provided certainly some positive news regarding Teron Armstead, basically saying there is a possibility he could play against Seattle, despite the shoulder injury he sustained against Buffalo. He's day-to-day. Obviously, having him in the lineup would be huge, because if you're one of those who subscribes to Pro Football Focus, and I do. There's validity to it, and it's not necessarily gospel, but there's the validity to it. He's the highest graded Dolphin player through 2 games. So, and the guy's a complete stud.
Yep, and on injury stuff, we can circle back. When you talk about the load for Achane, remember Raheem Mostert missed last game, and Jeff Wilson went out with the oblique. We don't know if either will be back this week.
So, hold on. So, I didn't see it myself, but it was reported that Drew Rosenhaus said on his weekly appearance on WSVN Sports Extra that it's not a serious injury for either Jeff Wilson Jr. or for Robert Jones, the starting left guard.
Okay, that's good. Those are both very good. Both very good. Here's what I was going to say, though, about overall, Tua is the single most important person on that team. But among all of these contract extensions and restructures, the Pro Bowl berths, the hyped acquisitions, you can't tell me this whole thing falls apart without Tua. This whole offense, this whole defense, all of specialty, like, you better be able to do something to stay afloat. Like, if it all falls apart because of your quarterback, you're a fraud, okay? Let me be very clear about that. You are a fraud. You've got to come up with a way to – I'm not saying the Dolphins have to be able to make the playoffs without Tua or win the Super Bowl, but gosh, you ought to be able to stay afloat for a few weeks. You've got too much talent on this team and too much brain power on that coaching staff to completely fall apart. You've got to be able to stay afloat for X number of weeks. Got to.
Oh, no, I agree. And if they don't, it's a massive indictment on everything they put together. And a massive.
Correct.
To me, again, hypothetically, if the Tua, for let's say he does go on IR, he misses 4 games. If they don't go at least 2-2, there's a problem.
I agree 100%, Poop. 100%.
Okay. Anything else we missed? Jordan Brooks is going to be playing against his old team. By the way, I just want to mention that he's been playing some good ball. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we will see 2 South Florida products, because Geno Smith, the starting quarterback from Miramar, and then Tyler Huntley was a starting quarterback at Hallandale. So while Tyler Huntley will not start and hopefully won't play, right? No offense to Tyler, we will see 2 South Florida quarterbacks suiting up on Sunday in that game.
And we also should mention, if you guys are not aware, that the Seahawks have 2 former Dolphins, 2 very recent former Dolphins, including their starting center Connor Williams and linebacker Jerome Baker, who I just found out not that long ago actually left their game at New England yesterday because of a hamstring injury. I don't know what his status. It would suck if he wasn't able to play, because it'd be cool to see him in action. Be actually cool to do a head-to-head, see the Baker and Brooks comparison. Right now, I don't think the Dolphins have any reason to have any issue with how things worked out over there because, like I said, Jordan Brooks has been very, very good for the Dolphins the first 2 games. And again, going back to the Pro Football Focus grades, he's the highest graded Dolphin player on defense through 2 games.
And had that PBU in the end zone where the ball hit him. Yeah, I didn't. He probably could have turned around a little bit more, but whatever. It's a PBU in the end zone, baby.
It's a linebacker in coverage against Curtis Samuel.
Correct.
PBU, so that's perfectly fine. We'll take it.
Right.
You know what else we'll take? We'll take a break until next time we meet because that's going to wrap it up. We will be back tomorrow with the Behind Enemy Lines. We're going to be talking Seattle Seahawks football, and then Perk and I will be back on Wednesday if he's willing to be back on the podcast to discuss the first injury report and see what we see when the Dolphins get back to practice. In the meantime, thank you once again, Mr. Perkins. You find his work at sunsentinel.com, the Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I'm going to guess you guys are doing that tomorrow.
I am. I'm getting all choked up here, Poop. I thought I was going to make it out. I thought I was going to make it out of here before this caught me, but here I am with my eyes watering. Tomorrow at noon, sunsentinel.com, Dolphins Deep Dive with Bert.
Okay, there you go. And then All Dolphins podcast here. Read my stuff on MiamiDolphinsOnSI.com. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys on Tuesday.